Good day, everybody, and welcome to the next installment in the Ben and Boz Microsoft Excel video tutorial series. I'm Boz.
I'm Ben.
How you doing today, man?
It's a beautiful day in St. Joe Township.
That it is. So, well, let's have at it. In this lesson, we are going to learn how to use input cells and how to lock down some cells. We are also going to learn how to use future value formulas.
Yeah, specifically, we're going to learn also how to edit a selected cell, calculate a future value payment, a payment amount, as well as a number of periods needed to get rid of, say, a student loan, something like that.
I'm excited.
Good.
All right.
I hope you are.
Let's get into the first example.
Yeah, the dork in me loves retirement problems and love problems where you're paying down loans.
Yeah.
So naturally, future value, present value concepts fit right in with that.
Totally.
And with this first one, we're going to do a retirement problem here. So I want to save $5,500 per year, max I can save under a IRA, at the end of each of the next 5 years. And I want to know how much I have if I can get 7% interest.
Yeah, it'll be fun to figure this out. And I see the way you got it set up. Are you going to solve it kind of the long way first and then do a shortcut method?
Absolutely. So solve it the long way, where we're going to learn the value of using input cells and also how to lock cells, and then we'll go the shortcut method.
Nice.
Let's get to it.
All right.
So first thing, the beginning amount. Well, you're starting here. We said we're contributing at the end of the year. So beginning of year one, we have nothing. So I'm just going to punch in 0 for that one. Hit an enter to move down. The interest that I've earned, well, my beginning amount times my interest rate, which is 7%. Like you might guess, 0 times 7% is 0.
But you did that in case someone wants to change that assumption, basically. So you kind of just set it up that way.
Exactly. So now if I were to change that beginning amount, say I made it 1,000, well, the interest automatically calculates, which is one of the benefits of using input cells. That 7% is my input cell, so I just keep referencing to that as opposed to having to type it all the time.
And I see you undid that, and that was the Control-Z again.
Yes,
you
good.
Undid that. All right.
So total before contribution. So we started with 0. Then we're going to add in the interest that we earned, and that's going to give me 0 plus 0 equals 0.
But now we get a number.
Now we finally get a number. So we have a contribution, like we said in the problem, $5,500. So if I just arrow up, hit the equals key, and then arrow up to 5,500, hit enter. Now I can add in my total before contribution plus my contribution gives me a total amount of $5,500.
Nice. All right. Now we move on to year 2, and then what happens?
So year 2.
We do have a beginning amount at the year.
We do have a beginning amount. So in this one, I'm just going to hit the equal sign and reference down to the end of year 1 because end of year 1 should be the same as beginning of year 2.
Sure.
So we have $5,500. Now with this interest earned, I already set the formula, so I should just be able to copy it, right?
I bet it's going to work.
You think so? Oh, no. It's almost like we set it up. It didn't work.
Yeah.
And do you want to explain why it didn't work?
Well, yeah, what happened, Microsoft Excel is smart. So when Ben pasted over, he was at B10 times B6 if you look up at the formula bar. And then when he pasted it over, it went to C10 times C6. So we like that it went to C10, but we don't like that it went to C6. So a nice thing that he can do here as compared to having to just redo the formula every time is he can actually lock down that B6 in that initial cell B11 here.
So if I go into B11, and one quick way to edit a cell, as we know, I could just move up with the mouse and click into it to start working on it. Or I could actually double click on the cell down here. But a shortcut method of doing that is to just hit the F2 button.
Yep.
And when you do that, you see the cursor pops up, and it's right there. Then I can use the arrow keys to decide what cell I want to work with, or if I wanted to divide or something. As an example, I could do that. But F2 is the key that just lets you start editing a cell right away.
Totally. And then that B6 is what I refer to that as locking it down. Some people use the term anchor it. What do you prefer?
I would say locking it down.
Locking it down. So, but go ahead.
But then if I hit the F4 key on your keypad, you see there's a little $sign before the B and the 6. And so that means I'm locking down both the reference to column B and the reference to row 6. If I cycle through F4, I could just lock down row 6, or I could just lock down column B. We're not going to get into that today, but if you
or hit it again and lock down nothing.
Nothing. And we want to lock down both if we want to go to a specific cell reference.
Now you can copy that one anywhere on the spreadsheet, and it would maintain that the reference to B6, but we'll just copy it once over to the right here.
Control C, Control V, and we get 385. And so if I hit F2 to enter into it, you can see it's taking the beginning of year amount times the interest rate.
Nice.
So my total before contribution, well, that one should copy over, right?
Yep.
I'm just going to do a Control R over here because I know you're partial to
I like
that
Control
one.
R. Yeah.
My contribution amount, I think that sounds like one we should lock down as well.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to hit F2 to enter the cell and then F4 to lock it down.
Way to have them practice what they learned, Ben. Good work.
Hit my enter key, Control C and Control V to paste it over.
Could have done a Control R, but Control C, Control V also works.
Total after contribution, I'll do Control R for
Thank you.
And look
Thank
at that.
you. Yep, yep.
So now I think we have our amounts all set up.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do
So you just highlighted them all with like a shift arrow key
down to highlight
Yep.
them all, and then Control R to go all the way over, it all updates, and we're at 31,629 at the end of 5 years.
Yep. So highlight them all, then just arrow keyed over to the right, and then hit Control R. And this is just kind of a basic of Excel modeling, and they're just going to do a ton of this in the real world. So just little things like you just did right there. If you didn't know good Excel skills, you would have had to put a formula in each and every cell there, which just would have taken way too long and would have made it prone to errors. So now we see that it's worth 31,629. So let's see if your shortcut formula works in this.
Yeah, we
in
have a
this time.
target amount that we want to get to here. So let's say the rate is 7%, same as it was before. The number of periods, well, I'm going to do years, and it's 5 years here.
Mm-hmm.
The payment amount is 5,500. And then the present value, the amount we have today, is 0, nothing. So to calculate future value, I'm going to use the formula equals future value. So I'm going to type in the equal sign, type in F and a V, FV for future value. You see it's highlighted in blue there. So if I hit the tab, it opens up the formula for me. And as you can see at the bottom here, it tells me exactly what my inputs need to be. And again, there are ways where you can use the formula tool if you want to get used to the formula in the first place, but let's just use these small prompts here.
Sure.
So my rate, I'm going to arrow up to the 7%, hit the comma, number of periods, arrow up to the 5, the comma, the payment amount, 5,500, the comma, and then the present value is 0.
That's just if there had been some present value investment. So, yeah.
And then the last one asks me for the type. 0 if it's at the end of the period, 1 if it's at the beginning. There'd be a slight difference there because if I made a contribution at the beginning of the period, I'd be collecting interest right away as opposed to not collecting any interest in that first year.
Sure.
So this one is a 0 for end of the period. Close my parentheses and hit enter. And look at that, we get 31,629.
Yep. So and I think it turns out as a negative. So if you wanted that to be a positive, you could just start the formula as opposed to saying equal future value. You could do minus future value. So hit your F2 to edit, go to the beginning of the whole formula, and just put a minus before the FV. So,
there you go.
Yep, and it's the same. And if you just did a really quick, like just change the number of periods to 40. So say someone's like a retirement example. This hopefully gets some users excited. They can see if they keep this up for 40 periods, they got over $1 million just
Save
by
$1 million, $5,500 per year.
Yep. So
Probably seems like a lot now.
that's right. It does. It does. But
All right.
early, so.
Let's move on to a couple other examples. We're going to skip going through the long way and just jump straight to the shortcut method here.
Sure.
So in this case, if I want to retire 30 years from now with $2 million in the bank, how much do I need to save each year, earning 7%? So in this case, interest rate, 7%. The future value amount, I want to have $2 million. So I'm just going to type that in. And then the time period is going to be 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so this one's a little bit trickier to remember, amount you need to save each year, because we're going to use the formula for payment, PMT. To help you think of it, you're going to make a payment to a brokerage account, a bank account, a retirement account, something like that. So it's the payment function equals PMT, the only one there. If you hit tab to open it up, the rate is going to be 7%, just using the arrow key to go up there. Hitting the comma, the number of periods is 30. Hitting the comma again, present value is 0, assuming we don't have anything right now. If we did have something, we could add it in.
Yep, that means we don't just start with a lump sum right now. Yep.
And then the future value, we want it to be $2 million.
Yep.
I'm going to assume that it's at the end of the period again. Usually you make the money and then you make the payment at the end. So if I enter 0 or hit tab, either one, close my parentheses, and then hit enter, and there it is. I need to save $21,000 each year.
Yep. So you can see that, if you want to retire, with that $2 million, let's say that you don't like that amount, and you think maybe change the interest rate to 10%. If you believe you can get that through more aggressive investments, that that's really subjective. But then you would not have to save as much. Now the beauty is you can play with any of those 3 inputs, and you could see how that would affect it. Or maybe you want to be more conservative with your investments and only earn 4% as an example. Well, now you're going to have to save a lot more.
A lot more, yeah. And that number is pretty sensitive. I wish there was a way that we could evaluate all these different options at once.
Kind of sounds like a data table, right? So that we
stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Yep, definitely.
All right, one last example that might hit a little close to home for you. In this case, we have student loans of $50,000, and the average loan rate is 6%. So how long is it going to take to pay off if you pay down $5,000 per year?
And just as a quick note, if you have $50,000 of loans and you're going to pay $5,000 per year, it would take you 10 years if there was no interest. $50,000 divided by $5,000 per year. We're going to have interest here, so we know it should take longer than 10 years.
All right. So our present value in this case is $50,000. The payment, which I'm going to show as a negative because we're paying the money, cash is going out. So it's going to be negative $5,000. Future value, we want it to be 0 at the end, so we don't owe anything else. And then our interest rate is 6% here. So again, all of these are my input cells. I highly recommend using those just because then it's way easier to see your final number by changing the input cells as opposed to going in and changing every single formula. So in this case, number of periods, our formula is NPER, number of periods. The rate, 6%. Payment, we had as a negative again for the 5,000. Present value, it's 50,000 right now. Future value, you want it to be 0. And then the type, it defaults to end of period. So I hit tab to select that one, close the parentheses. And there we go, 15.72 years, which let's just round to 15 years and 9 months.
Yep. So that gives you, an illustration there. And then again, if you find out that your student loans, maybe that 6% is not the accurate rate, but you have an 8% rate on those, we can now see it's going to take you 21 years in order to pay that off.
And even if maybe you have a little more money than you thought,
sure,
you can pay
sure.
$7,000 per year. And then you're back down to 11.
Yeah, go to that go back to 6%. If you can that's a great illustration because just by increasing your payment from $5,000 to $7,000, you decreased it from 15 plus years down to 9 plus years. So.
Yeah, save a lot of time with paying a little extra.
Totally. Let's go back to the instructions. Did we cover everything we said we were going to cover? Hopefully.
I think we did. We know how to lock a cell reference now with F4. We can edit a cell just by hitting F2 like I did right now. We know how to use future value, payment, and number of periods. I think we nailed it.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Talk to you.